Rick DiClemente here. How you doing? Welcome to Astrology Unplugged. Nice to have you this evening. Those of you joining us on YouTube in addition, nice to have you. Tonight's going to be a focus especially on the United States chart because one has to wonder, as you've been looking around at things the past several months, when are we going to wake up? What kind of sleep are we in? Now, I said something a couple months ago because I learned this about 20, 30 years ago, and it's exactly true and real and it does work. When the head of a company has a chart, whatever happens to that chart happens to that business, whether that business has 600 branches or 3 people. Whatever happens to those people, they're subject to the leader's chart. Not completely, but in a general way. And if the United States is still the leader of the world, which is teetering for sure, then Mr. Trump's chart represents 7 billion people. And that sure is how frightening. So people have argued with me, and I don't care if they argue, because I've watched it and watched it and watched it, and it's true. So if they want to watch it and prove that it's not, fine, I'm all ears. Now, so Neptune is squaring Trump's sun and moon. His sun and moon are being squared by Neptune. He's got a natal Neptune square to Mercury. He's already off the wall. Anyhow, the question I came up with as I researched today was, why is the USA the way it is? With people whining, I don't want to wear a mask, and this stuff. Why is the US this way? You got to go back to the 1940s to realize we won that war. We got involved with dividing up everything with everybody, right? The 50s came along, and Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver. The 50s came along. Great big ocean, quiet Canada, quiet Mexico. Nothing like Czechoslovakia, Poland, Spain, Italy. You ride the trains through Europe and you see the people get on and off, and you can just sense it. You can sense the seriousness in their genetic face. It's a serious look. And America's like, what do you do? I'm going to get pet rock. Get a pet rock. You'll be laughing. Ha ha. I'm going to give a pet rock. Okay, so let's go back and we'll see what happened. This is very intriguing. This is the United States chart for 5 years. This is the United States chart in 1776 on the 4th of July. The country declared its independence on July 2nd. But there were definitely astrologers at play. Talk about Franklin, talk about Jefferson, Madison, lots of them were astrologers, and they really screwed up. And they really did it royally, and they fell into the classic beginner's trap. They had good intentions, and all that was known at that time was Saturn inward. Let me show you what they did. They had very good intentions, but it had to happen the way it happened anyway. Take a look at this. This is the United States chart as they formed it. July the 4th at 5:13, almost 5:14 in the afternoon, rectified by Dane Rudger and others. So we had absolute experts working on the birth time. As I told you, there are a lot of arguments which birth chart is the birth chart. There are a lot of arguments what's the birth time. I've had a lot of success working with this one for years now. Nobody knows when we were born. Nobody knows. Now, I want you to follow this. It has multiple birth times. So last week, I got into debates with the people on Astrolabe that make solar fire. What do you use for the beginning of a person? Is it the minute that the baby takes a breath? Is it the umbilical cord? Is it when the baby comes out? And everyone said breath, 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 breath. I said umbilical cord. And then I saw one nurse post out there where some babies are born and they don't take a breath for 2 hours. There are cases like that. So what do you do as an astrologer? The smartest thing to do is mark down the time. If your watch is in sync to the second, like mine was, write down the time the baby came out of the mother, write down the time of the snip, write down the time of the cry, and the first breath. And you have 4 charts. Now, caveat. When a business starts, a business has the day they thought of the idea, the day they got their title, the day they got copyrighted, the day they earned their first dollar and they put it in the frame. You got all these multiple births. Write them all down. And as time goes on, you will find only one of them is really holding up to the test of time. So I'm going to tell you again, when things happen to you, write down the time. You meet somebody, you buy a car, you take a new job, because you'll never know it again. I just talked to Nook. Nook released her book July 7th by working with me on what date to release it. We released her new book, Nook Sanchez. Her new book on the Course in Miracles was released on July 7th, intentionally while Mercury is retrograde, because we like where the planets were, but I did not pick the time, because I won't do that, because the time's too critical. She got the time that it was released. In other words, she told me when God decided to publish it. 9:02 in the morning. And the chart ended up beautiful. Oh, breathtaking. And I couldn't have picked the time. And time's really critical because the chart turns throughout the houses during the day in the time. And one chart can be marvelous, and the next chart could be the same planets would be awful because of the time, because you put planets on the angles. A planet Neptune on the angle is too strong. A planet Neptune halfway between the midheaven and the ascendant is not as strong. So it's very complex. And that moment will only happen once, and that moment is the moment that her book was born. So when these guys, and whatever women were involved, decided that we'd be born on the 4th of July, 5 years later, here comes somebody finding Uranus. Pre-Uranian. Here's the US of A. And during those times, you got this really bad habit of the old astrologers that some still use today. Jupiter's the great one. Oh, it's just always going to be great. The great benefic. Venus is the minor benefic. He's kind of good like most of the time. And the real Satan, the real bad guy, the grand malefic is Saturn. That's a bunch of BS because Saturn brings so much success to our chart. And the mini bad guy, the mini malefic, is Mars. People today are still using these phrases. And I'll give you example after example of people getting their butt kicked when Saturn's there. And I'll give you many more examples of how their life comes together. So it's just a mode of thinking that needs to go. And you could tell that Franklin and these guys that picked this time did not know enough about what they were doing, and they crowded planets together, and you don't do that. You gotta let planets breathe. So what did they do? They looked at where the planets were going to be for a couple months, look where the planet was coming, etc. And they picked this date. Oh my goodness, the sun is in Cancer. How rich the soil will be, and the sun is next to Jupiter, and Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer, and Jupiter is 2 degrees from Venus, and isn't that wonderful? The benefic, the grand benefic, and the mini benefic. The wonderful planets. We'll be rich as hell. We'll have rich soil. We'll have lots of money. We'll put Mercury in the 8th house. We'll be very deep and penetrating. Strong mind, right? Very promising. Mars, we'll put Mars near the descendant, 8 degrees away, not too close. We'll put it in Gemini. We'll all be jacks of all trades. We'll all be able to do all these things. We got to put Saturn somewhere because he's the boss. We put him in Libra where he's exalted. We put him in his home house, the 10th house. We put him far enough away from the ascendant. Beautiful chart so far. Even if you're educated in astrology, even to the point that Saturn is squaring the sun by 1 degree. Saturn squares sun is very positive. It can lead to some problems, yes. It can lead to muscular dystrophy, yes. It can bring physical limitations, yes. But many, many, many times I've seen Saturn square the sun and it was really positive strength to the personality. So they make the whole thing a bucket pattern to the moon. If they're born 6 hours later, the moon is in Pisces, which you don't want. You don't want a Cancer with a moon in Pisces. You just don't want that. So they put the moon in Aquarius. What she looked like? She looked like a lady with the arms sticking up holding the torch. That's what the moon in Aquarius is. What are we going to give to her rising sign? Sagittarius. By God, Jupiter's on the sun. Jupiter's ruling the chart. Everything's hunky-dory. The problem we're having now that might bring us down, it's got us teetering. The problem with this country is the sun next to Jupiter and Venus. Because Jupiter and Venus is everything comes to me. Hey, I'm sitting back in my hammock. It's going to end up in my lap. I'm wearing a mask. I mean, wear a mask. The hell you talking about? Wear a mask. It just lands in my lap. I'm not making an effort. All this crappy news on there on TV. I'll just change the station. Get away with that. That's what happened when you don't know what you're doing. Boy, I could tell you, I could paint some pictures for you, all the egg I got on my face for what I did when I was early. And I got married and put Jupiter right on the midheaven, within a minute or two. Boy, did that manifest. But it ended up, that's what the marriage was like anyway. So you really can't fool anybody. When people ask me now about electional astrology, picking times for the birth of things, I don't do it anymore. I just don't do it because I'm not smart enough. I can't bring in all the subtle details. And the Holy Spirit is just so much smarter than me. Just let it happen. When you're starting something, it's going to start according to who you are and what your intention is. And you can't BS your way around. So 5 years later, 5 years into this country, Uranus is discovered. Wow, 1781. So we look at this birth chart. This birth chart has the potential of never having problems, so resourceful, so smart. We're a leader of the world. By God, we're going to show you how to do things right. You need something, come to us. Come to us. You've got your huddled masses that are suffering. Come to us, but don't come in 2020. Because we'll put your ass in a cage. Okay? So let me show you what the chart's like since then. 1780, we get Uranus. 1800, we get Neptune. 1930, we get Pluto. 1977, we get Chiron. 2005, we get Eris. 5 new planets. Now take a look. Let me see what I'm doing here. Okay, standard. There's the chart now. Boy, looks a little bit different now. Uranus came to us. It's at 9 degrees, 4 degrees from the descendant. What does that do? In Gemini, Uranus and Gemini, we've already got tremendous problems right now already. It's so impatient, it wants everything right now. And it makes us really technologically strong, but it's got to do with our relationships with other countries. And it's fickle. That's what Uranus and Gemini is. It's fickle. You thought I was going to say something else. No. Fickle. Isn't that neat? Ooh, isn't that neat? Isn't that neat? You talk to them, okay. And what is it? What does it mean, the 7th house? It's how you deal with others. It's how you deal with enemies that you know. So what do? You just constantly sleight of hand. Uranus and Gemini, sleight of hand. Sleight of hand. I didn't mean that. I didn't say that. I know it's on videotape, but I didn't say that. The good side is we're very flexible. We're very quick. Notice how quickly we've turned around and made all these tests and masks that people are still screaming for. Shallow. Run to your TV, turn off everything off, escape. Disposable income, disposable everything. Uranus and Gemini. What do you think the odds are of having good, strong American relationships? I mean, they're there, they're out there, but with Uranus and Gemini, she rubbed me the wrong way the other night. Had to get rid of her. That's what it means. It means you're very friendly. It means you love to flirt. It means you have very sudden attractions and just sudden repulsions. That's Uranus, Mercury aspects. That's what that means when Venus, etc., gets involved. You get excited, you meet somebody real quickly, whoo, it's the gas, and a week later you're bored to death. So when you see people with Uranus, Venus aspects, that's what it means. The Royal calls it the flirtatious aspect. So the Uranus is really strong. It's in the 6th house of work, so that's why we're technologically strong. Okay, fine. What else is it doing? When we put Uranus there, it is opposite the ascendant. It is at 9 degrees. It is trining Saturn. So that's a good aspect, but that's not really a big deal. Okay, the next planet that we found was called Neptune, 18-something. Neptune, where did you happen to appear? Oh, up at the top of the chart in the 9th house of our philosophies, our relationships with publications out to the world. This is the USA being Hollywood, New York, we're the glamour center. All right, it's in pretty good shape. I mean, it squares, it has this and that. And I took it for granted all these years. And about 3 weeks ago, I did a double take and my eyes popped out of my head because I saw Neptune is square to Mars by 1 degree. This is real trouble. Neptune is in Virgo, 1 degree square to Mars in Gemini. That means do what you want, kind of juggling with your life. If that doesn't work, don't worry about it. It's okay. We didn't even see it happen. Did you see it happen? I didn't see it happen. Neptune square Mars is just really nasty. In Gemini, it is. It's just really tough to deal with because it makes you, what did he say? Oh, he said, if you're not going to open your schools, I'm going to defund your school system. That's all right. What's on your channel? How we have become so normalized. We've normalized this stuff. This guy is nothing but the manifestation of the stuff. But this is where it comes from. And Uranus, Neptune square to Mars means when Mars gets involved with Neptune, if it's in water, that means I can do whatever I want with my feelings. I can have 3 girlfriends at once, so don't worry about it. When Mars gets involved with Neptune in the Earth, it means I can do this project. If I don't get it done, I'll let it decay and build another one. And it's involved in air. This is involved in air. This is how we get to speak out of both sides of our mouth. Like today, them declaring, what state was it? Liza, what state did they declare? Oklahoma? The Supreme Court said today that, what state was it? Oklahoma? Whatever it was. It declared that one of the states, I put people on the spot very quickly, that it was Oklahoma, that over half the state is Indian territory. Okay? Why? Why did they do it? It's because it'd be easier to sue them. That's what we found out. Arrest them. Okay. Okay. So Neptune square to Mars means that you can say anything you want. You can talk about anything you want. People want to move to the United States because of the freedom. I mean, Neptune square Mars is a tremendous amount of freedom. But with it comes responsibility, because when you get a square to Neptune, you get involved with this attitude of I can do anything I want. And that's already so Geminian. When I found that a month ago, I just flipped out. I just couldn't believe it, that we've been living with that. And that is, I mean, we got really good-hearted, strong people in this country, and we're waking up, but that's a really tough one to get over. It is. That's why you talk to somebody seriously, and they laugh at you, like you're being too serious. Go sit in an inn, in a cafe in Europe outside the business. They're all sitting there talking very seriously and disagreeing with each other, and very politically astute. So it's a very troublesome aspect. We'll never grow out of it completely. We can make improvements with it, but we have to get Saturn involved and be more of a man of our word. Now, what have I been telling you for 15 years? What's been going on for 15 years is Pluto has been opposite the sun of the United States. And with the opposition to the sun, 12 degrees Cancer, and Pluto was at 12, it's at 24 now. It's still in effect. The opposition to the sun has a seventh house connotation. And seventh house is about relationships, but it's also about enemies that you're aware of. And what I've been harping for years is we've got to start treating our neighbors differently. What good did that do? One good thing we've done with South America. Anybody can think of one? One? What did we just do with WHO? So we just don't learn. We just keep on neglecting the ramifications. So the Mars square Neptune is really, really very troublesome. We can conquer it, but we're going to go deeper first. So 1930, Hitler comes around. You get Pluto. It's founded in 1930. Mr. Percival, is that his name? Mr. Percival Lowell discovers Pluto in 1930. And where do we find Pluto? Oh, it happens to be right opposite Mercury, which is already in the 8th house. So we've got deep penetrating minds and a T-square to Chiron and Aries, which we didn't even know about Chiron. So the Chiron doesn't come till 1977. So 1930, we get the opposition of Pluto and Mercury. 1930, right smack dab between two wars. 1930, the rise of Hitler, the rise of the unconscious mind, all the work that Jung did, Freud did. The unconscious mind is delivered to the mind, Mercury. So on the collective American stage, the mind is introduced to the collective shadow side, which we didn't know what that meant. So in 1960, you get the Twilight Zone, and you get all this ooh stuff going on because we don't know who's going to crawl out from underneath the bed and get us. But we start to deal with the unconscious mind, and that's why I really believe, that's why in 2006, I believe that's why Pluto was demoted. Even though it was demoted by the astronomers, not the astrologers, I believe it meant that we're comfortable now with the unconscious. From 1930 to 2006, that's 76 years, we had to deal with learning about the unconscious, all these classes, all these courses, all these Freudians and all this. I think by that time, we were all pretty much aware that my unconscious mind is doing things. And I think that's one of the reasons it was demoted, even though it wasn't. But that's just a personal opinion. Pluto opposite Mercury. In a chart, it means that we have a mental inferiority complex, or we feel that others are putting us down mentally. We don't know exactly how it's going to manifest. Pluto oppositions are very difficult to analyze, so we'll just leave that there. Okay. So we know there's going to be heavy duty, strong debate. All right. 1977, everybody starts mixing all these test tubes together. Everybody starts doing the energy work and the tapping and kinesiology, and everything's turning to energy work because of this discovery in 1977 of Chiron. So Chiron comes on and she raises hell. I mean, everybody, I'm so sick of hearing people talk about how the 60s were a waste of time by a bunch of hippies. Well, people would be nowhere without the work that was done then. I used to go in bookstores, there'd be one or two books by Uspensky in 1969, or a book by Gurdjieff, and then few people had read it, stopped in the store that day. People just didn't know about this stuff, but we put down the initial stages. Autobiography of a Yogi had just been written, Be Here Now had just been written, and the real platform for spiritual growth was established, upon which we are profiting now. Everywhere you look, somebody's got a shingle out. So you saw that this Pluto, Mercury, whatever it was, this is very difficult, it had a release. It released itself through Chiron in Aries. So Chiron in Aries is very strong. And what that means is, you saw this happen in 77. What that means is people started to really take seriously and wrap their hands around alternative healing methods. All of a sudden, people stopped not listening to their doctors. They tried this salve. They tried to go to Switzerland for this cure or this spa, whatever. Not that it worked or didn't work. Now we're on the verge of the new Healy instrument, which our friend Linda, sitting in the middle of the screen, is going to talk to us about in a few weeks when we finally get our machines, she and I. But it's a new machine that Healy. It's about the size of a pack of cigarettes. It's electronic, and it works on like 800,000 different vibratory settings to help you with cancer, to help you with depression, to help you with a broken ankle, to help you with a hang up, whatever. So we're now into the quantum era. We're into the quantum era, which was finalized and released when I said it was in January of 2011. I'll explain that to you someday. January of 2011, we all ran around the planet going, oh, well, God, we got to change our sun sign. There's 13 signs. What the hell's wrong? We all were losing it. That's not what happened. 2011 is when quantum mechanics got delivered to the public. It was founded in 1927, but it was delivered to the public, made social in 2011. So that's what's so indicated by Uranus and by Chiron. So in 1977, you saw people, and this is in the house of the home, people were trying to doctor themselves at home. People were having success with this. But now, this Saturn, which was in such a gloried status at the top of Zodiac, is now opposite. It's now opposite a planet that's quite different in nature. It's opposite a real impulsive, I'll take care of it myself, when Saturn's all about, well, I'm the boss, I'm up here, I'm going to direct when the red light and the green light goes on or off. And just listen to me, we'll all be okay. So what we saw in the ensuing years of our first Pluto cycle, because in 1776, Pluto was at 27, and in 256 years, Pluto's gone all the way around all that time. And right now, Pluto is sitting right here, 25. So we are in the Pluto return stage now. And Pluto returns, there are many stages to it. There are a lot of really good things about it, and there are a lot of challenging things about it. But what I really think is going on with the country now is we are being required to grow up. And what I think that means, and I've said this many times, with a Cancer country. We want our Shetland pony. I want my pony. Where's my pony? I went out this morning. My pony ain't here. And there's some Gandalf-looking dude standing there that says, no more pony. No more, read my lips, no more pony. Here's your stallion. We need thoroughbreds. Get your ass up on the stallion. I don't want to go on the stallion. I don't want to, wear no damn mask. So that's what's going on. And the Pluto return has just started. And then, who in hell thought this one up? As if there weren't enough stuff. Well, we're tough beings, I'll tell you. If that weren't enough stuff, here comes Eris. Okay, well, I'm going to show you where she is now. So right now, this is where the planets are now. Look at Eris at 24. Look at Pluto at 24. So the Pluto's got to get to about 27. Pluto and Saturn are right around the natal Pluto, and they're both squaring Eris, which is at the tip of a T-square. And what is Eris? Eris we've talked about for the last year. It's this new symbol of we're not going to accept anything anymore that's unfair. And there's a real good way to do that, and there's a real bad way to do it. But I'm done. I'm not going to listen to it anymore. Eris, I will raise hell. I am the goddess of discord. I will do whatever I got to do to make sure there's no more unfairness. So we see the shadow side of it with Trump, and we see the other side coming out. But here's the question. You got to really think deeply here. Watch this. Where, let me go back to the USA's chart. Okay, so we found in 2005, our last discovery, we found Eris at the 8th degree. This ain't right. Yeah, once we found Eris, we found out where she was in 1776, and we put it on that chart. And we found Eris at 8 degrees, opposite Venus, opposite Jupiter, opposite the sun. This wonderful little stellium that we thought would never be harmed or touched is now opposite and got to answer to Eris. And it's all T-squaring Saturn. So what does that mean? It means you do what you want to do, but if you think you're going to get away from stealing stuff from the Ecuadorians and the Panamanians and putting it to your benefit in Utah and in New York, you got one thing coming. And now is her time. And that's why she's squaring right now. And people are still in a state of denial because you all know this phrase of your time's gonna come. And that's where we're here. And I don't even have to look at Mark. I could just feel Mark going, yep. Because Mark's very smart and he's not programmed. He's open to what's happening. Okay. So now a lot of us, you saw them in the streets, are rising up and we're speaking out and coming to the defense of the Black Lives Matter, etc. Wonderful stuff. And it would be 10 times as big if it weren't COVID out there. That's coming directly from Eris. Wonderful stuff. But where is this thumb in the mouth going? I don't want to wear a mask. Where in the hell is that coming from? Where do you get such tiny thinking? So the problem is, in the zodiac, the early signs are small thinkers at one level. And the reason they're small thinkers is because their thoughts are engaged in taking care of themselves. And you need that. And in the zodiac, you need the outer planets and the later signs to be conscious of other people. And it's very normal. And what's really required, preferred, is a balance. I've told you, get people with all early signs, and they might as well be in a little sandbox. You're not going to convince them that there's a world out there. Vice versa, people with all outer planets. you got to pull on the kite string once an hour to get them back near the earth so they can eat, so you can let them go back up. I mean, you just can't, they're not good for anything because they're just lost in theory. Most people are blind. Most people are blind, thank God. So you look at the United States chart, and I ask you, where does the maturity come from? Okay, let's take a look. Where does the maturity come from? Early planet, early planet, early planet, early planet, early planet, early planet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets. Moon in a very advanced state of Aquarius. Even though the moon is not very good, it's not very emotional in Aquarius, it's still really good because you think of others. You don't think of me, you think of us. What are we going to do? And that's why you saw in the early stages of this chart, they banked on the moon in Aquarius. You only had Saturn inward. They put Saturn up here at the top. They made everything else be a bucket pattern going around the moon. But what happened? This triplicate over here, which was plant the seed, boom, you can pull out poppies right away. As soon as you plant the seed, boom, poppies popping up. Not opposite Eris. We found out we had dues. We had responsibilities. So when you go to Europe and you look at America post-World War II, when you go to Europe and you talk to them about how they feel about Americans now, there was one phase there, Trump's first 2 years, where they were worried about us and they thought we're out of our mind. Now they're just losing respect. And we were told about that. We were told if you don't do what Pluto says, treat other people right from the heart, what does Pluto do to you? Pluto removes your support systems. And I think NATO, and I think Britain, and I think EU is what I would call a support system, and WHO. So once again, we come back to the USA chart, and we ask it, why I gotta wear a mask? Where are you going to get the adult answer from? Where is it? It's got to be there. I'm not going to say it's a good chart because people want to hear it's a good chart. I'm not going to do it. I'm telling you what the chart says. Charts have flexibility. We're going to talk about what the chart says. You've got this still very strong Saturn up here. She's being squared by Eris. And squares are not just problematic. I mean, they definitely exchange problems between these two, but squares also strengthen each other because they have to deal with each other. So it's very strong just by the virtue that it's combining. The excellent book in astrology called Combination of Stellar Influences, one of the must for your library by Rudolf Ebertin, German. The combination of stellar influences. How does Venus combine with Saturn? How does Mars combine with Pluto? Plus and minus. One of seminal books in astrology. Even though these two planets are aspecting each other, Saturn and Eris, they bring out good in each other because they got to survive the other pain in the ass. They got to survive it. And the Saturn's squaring over here, where? 14, its closest square to the sun. Sun, Saturn, Eris. Woo! And we did not have sun square. We did not have Sun, Eris, Saturn till 2006. It didn't exist. How have you seen the world change since 2006? 2007, all the banking went kerflooey. 2008, Pluto went into Capricorn, etc., etc. Okay, so do you get a lot of power from Neptune being up here? Neptune's really pretty thoughtful up here. It's in a very good place in Virgo. It's very pure and high-minded. Just like the Dawk is when she hangs up her signs. She's very much Neptune in the ninth house. Neptune is square to Mars, and Mars says, see, God told me I could do anything I want. Woo! That's what Mars and Gemini says. It's not exactly what Neptune means, but that's what Mars says. Woo, it's cool, let's do it. Lost. Strong Mercury. We don't know what the sun's doing. We really don't know. Why did they put the sun in the 7th house? Is this because we wanted to be a leader of others? This is the house of the counselor. Public position, sun next to Jupiter, we're seen as smart, the land of opportunity. But the problem comes in right here. Because Jupiter, Venus, I told you all, you're not going to go anywhere in astrology. You don't have to go fanatical like I am, but you got to have an understanding of what does Jupiter do to Venus? What does Jupiter do to Saturn? You have to have a basic understanding of what happens when these planets combine. And Jupiter, Venus is about laziness. It's about the road with the least obstacles. That's exactly what it's about. It's also about things just land in your lap. Why? They land in your lap effortlessly because you're benefic, because you're benevolent. That's why they land in your lap. Well, how much have you seen from our Congress, from our government, from our public relations that has been benevolent lately? Peace Corps, giving a bunch of weed away. That's what it's about. So the good side of this is that we're really, really thinking of others. We're really helping others. We're really concerned. And it means what it says on the side of the Statue of Liberty. And the bad side of this is I'm not going to sign that. I'm not going to go down the street 1/4 of a mile and vote. I got to get off my chair and vote. Oh, why can't I just vote by clicking on something? Huh? I watch this program. I'll vote for him. It's flippancy. That's the problem with Jupiter, Venus. It's wanting things to land in your lap effortlessly. And as you know, the most important planet in the zodiac, I don't care what anybody says, there's one planet that's important beside the sun, and that's Saturn. Because if you don't have your Saturn properly placed, everything falls apart. Saturn, you may have your problems with it, and your skin may wrinkle prematurely, but it's the congealer. It holds things together. So, all in all, when I look at the chart, all in all, the chart is very, almost infantile. It's very childlike. And childlike is really good in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways is not. And meanwhile, these kids are still in cages, and we mumble to each other, and we turn the page. It's okay with us. And this is a mortal sin to a cancer country. If cancer's got any worth, then you protect the kids. I don't give a crap. Who ever thought of separating mom and dad from their children? So, you've gone against your own inherent essential nature. What's cancer's good side? What's cancer's good side? The family's critical. We're going to do anything for little Elizabeth that fell down in the hole. I forget what her name was. We're going to stay up all night watching the miners from West Virginia get that little girl out of that hole. That kind of personal caring. But we're cancers. We're supposed to be the emotional leaders to the world. We'll take care of you. But not when the money gets involved. And then we can't afford it, so we'll just kind of change it a little bit. And people have already talked about, I've seen on the news, they want to change some of the words and put a new plaque on the statue. What America really needs is to disincorporate and reincorporate with a different chart. And that ain't gonna happen. So the question is, We're not stepping up to the plate because the Pluto is doing one thing primarily. We are being judged as to whether we have used or abused our power in the last 70, 90 years. How would you vote? Have we used our power or have we abused it? That's what Pluto's doing. He's got a thumb down. All right. Well, but you see, one of the problems is it's not Cancerian to say, oops, I did that, let's fix it. It's Cancerian to ignore it. It's noble to look at it, say, I did that, mea culpa, like Germany does, teaches the kids all about the Holocaust, mea culpa, and we get on with it. We become better people and move forward. But Cancer doesn't do that. Hell, we can't even take care of the kids give them a little air blanket, whatever the hell that thing is. So, it's no coincidence that Eris came on now, because she's an ass kicker and she's here. And she will buffalo you. She's got two sides. The shadow side, which is, they don't listen to me, you can't make my damn gun rights away, give me that gun. And the other side, which is the blacks are finally being heard. People realize we're human beings. We watched you get murdered. They're up for murder now. You wait and see what happens if that guy gets off. So we got potential. We got phenomenal potential. That Sun, Jupiter, Venus isn't going anywhere. We're knee deep in resources. We got the resources. But it's the laziness of the Sun, Jupiter, Venus. It's the Canada's not going to do anything. Mexico's not going to do anything. Got these big waters, nothing's going to happen. And bam, here goes your buildings in New York City. Everything changed. 2001, everything changed then. Then the Cancer learned it was vulnerable. So where are we at now? Pluto is sitting right here. I'm sorry, Pluto is just about a 24, 25 right now, right opposite Mercury. So whatever that natal meaning of Pluto opposite Mercury meant, it's really intense now, and I'd have to give that a lot of thought. Pluto oppositions are very difficult to translate. Pluto and Saturn are sitting here, and Jupiter, and Eris is sitting here, square to it. So you can look at whatever you want to look at, but the story is that Pluto is returning, the Saturn is with it, Jupiter is with it, and Eris is square to it. And the rest of it is tiddlywinks. So, like I said, this is my 2 cents. It's time for us to grow up, including me and everybody else. I know, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I don't necessarily want to slap people when I see them. I'm not going to say that. but I am reaching my heart out and saying, please wake up. You know, you're not this dense. Please wake up. You don't really mean these things you're saying. It's okay that Trump can reach down to a woman and grab her in the crotch. It's really not okay, is it? It's really not okay. So you saw the chart. You saw how the chart evolved and grew. I got a couple comments. What does the Pluto return say about being so entitled? You have to understand what Pluto means. It takes years to learn these planets. I know Pluto pretty well. I've studied it a long time. I'm just learning Eris the last couple of years. Pluto is very heartfelt. It's why Scorpios care, and they're deep, and they want to do something with meaning. This is the pure Nook Sanchez, pure Pluto. It wants you to evolve. And if you're not ballsy enough to evolve, I will get rid of you. That's my job. My other job is a garbage man. I take out the garbage because you can't stay anymore. You had all these warnings, all this time, and I'm sorry to go, but into the garbage heap. That's what Pluto does. So what do you think Pluto does with an entitled generation? Well, what's going on now, instead of seeing, let's look at where we've been entitled, let's learn from where we've been entitled, what they got us doing is this now. And you got the most unbelievable third grade arguments happening. Just unbelievable. There weren't 2020. I'm 68 years old, and I'm watching people say, well, Trump did this and Trump did that. And then the person's response to me is, yeah, but look at what Hillary would have done. I mean, it's like third grade. We don't have the time for this junk. Hillary had problems. She had ups and downs. Trump's got all down. That's just the facts. It's the way it is. We got 4 more months. We got 4 more months. And all kind of things can happen. Why? Because Neptune is squaring the boss's sun and moon. Neptune's the planet of deception, smoke and mirrors. Okay? I was asked before the Super Bowl, Steelers and Seattle, I was asked along with a Seattle astrologer what I thought who would win the game, et cetera, et cetera. And I did the chart for the game time and all, and I kept seeing all these Neptune problems. And the other astrologers around the world saw it too. And what we came up with is the Super Bowl will be played, but it won't have a clear outcome. Something will be fuzzy about it. And people will challenge you. And what happened during that game is the Steelers got 7 questionable calls, and they all went in favor of the Steelers. And if you look real closely at each play, they really were the right call, you may recall. So Neptune has to do with funny money, with smoke and mirrors. It has to do with being underhanded. What did John Prine say? How'd you like to wake up in a house of mirrors with nobody there to close your eyes? That's one of his great lines. So, are we going to get an election? Are we going to get somebody to try to negate it? What about all the funny pollsters going on now and trying to discount certain people? What's going on? They see what the polls say. This guy is nothing but worrying about his election while people are dying left and right. No, I want the schools open or I'll defund your school. What the hell does that say to the Secretary of Education? What's that say? That's another story. Ram Dass said something beautiful, really applicable. He was so smart. He was so direct because he had all his Aries in him. He had all his Pisces in him. Ram Dass was an Aries Pisces. The beauty of Pisces is the directness of Aries. And he always talked about the game. This is a game. This is a spiritual game. He always put it in those terms. What did he say? He said that you can be having problems, and then you think, well, that's the Russians and we're the Americans. So hell with it. And then you have other problems, and you're looking around and say, well, that's the Southerners. The damn Southerners, not the Yankees. We're different. Then you get down to your family. Well, that's the Joneses, not the DiClementes. That family's like this. We're not like that. Then you get down to your family. Well, the guys, we're pretty good with the girls in this family. You're like, you know, and then that starts to fall apart. And then it becomes, well, that Rick guy is really not too cool with that Rick guy. We start fighting ourselves. So we just keep going the opposite of inclusion, what Ram Dass talked about. We keep dividing on a smaller scale. So the media's got us hating each other. I don't know if you've looked lately, but I think you have. Some people aren't talking very nicely to each other on Facebook. Woo! Love's the answer. We all know it. Inclusion is the answer. And Karen pulled a dirty one on me tonight because I told her if it all comes to an end, Liza and I are getting real tight with our own inner center. And if it goes, it goes. And Karen said, you can't leave me here. So I told her we had a caveat that we would stay a couple extra years just for her. All right. So that was a beautiful thing that Ram Dass said. It's worth giving thought to. We're going to open up for questions in a minute. Okay. We're doing fine. We don't need this. Dr. Fauci, take him off the air. He said stuff that disagreed with me. Take him off the air. That's okay. We don't need it. We don't need it. It's okay, Don. It's okay, Don. Neptune square Mars. That's all right. It ain't all right. I apologize to you that tuned in to get an astrology show and get so political here, but that's just the bitching I'm doing right now, and that's what I'm going to do. How about the fact that Karen has become a new noun? Do you see that? To Karen somebody, or to be a verb, that they found two Karens in a row in grocery stores who got into these fights. Whatever, I don't care how you spell it. They got into these fights about, I don't want to wear a mask, and you can't tell me, and they're pushing each other on the ground. And they were both named Karen, so now it's become a verb. People were Karening each other. So I thought you'd be happy about that one, Miss S. But what are they saying? You see, what they're saying is, here's where the problem is. I don't want to wear a mask because I perceive that you're trying to shove something down my throat, like you always have, and it's going to stop here. And you see, that's the good side of Eris. The good side is, I don't want you shoving things down my throat anymore. I'm stopping it. But the fact is, nobody's shoving it down your throat. You're misinterpreting it. And we're trying to say something Aquarian. Wear a mask for everybody. That's the problem. That's what happens when you got too many early planets. You don't perceive the bigger picture as you need to. And we know that the government and the people with the money benefit the more we do this. They just do. I'm almost done. So anyhow, so the last picture we take a look at. Hi, Alki. Didn't see you there. The last picture we take a look at, and we see the United States. In reality, compared to thousands of charts I've seen, it's not a bad chart. This is a problem. This Mars square to Neptune is a problem. The Saturn's really pretty good because the Saturn's really strong. It's involved. Thank God Eris is not too closer to the ascendant. Yes, of all the times you don't want to look at this chart, you don't want to look at it during a Pluto return. So that's the story. It's not so much the chart, which is kind of childlike. It's not so much the chart itself, it's what it's going through. Now, what does Pluto square Pluto do? I'll end this session with this. What do you do? Hi, Kitty. Lillian? No. What do you do during a Pluto return? When you got to stand up and speak out for something that's right, you will be supported. Do you think the planets were idle when Mr. Gandhi did what he did? You think it was like picnic in his church? Standing up, his little robe, naked self, standing against the British Empire? He knew what he was doing. He had 3 planets in Scorpio. He stood up to them because he had the power. That's why Dylan said, I could stop countries with a 6-string guitar. He's exactly right. He can do it. It's where you're coming from. Where's the power? And the power is infinite. So, what I leave you with before I open the phones is, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I think a lot of things I said is right. And I do know that during a Pluto return, We're going to be going through, we talked about this recently. We itemized everything a couple of weeks ago. We're going to be going through redefining everything. What is money? What is education? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Now we're at the point we don't even know if we can. You walk to a store, you're too nervous to shake somebody's hand. It's really frightening stuff. This is no coincidence. We're at the edge because we have not stood up. It's that simple. We're at the edge because we haven't stood up. And winning that World War II made it awful nice and easy. Sit back, Jupiter, Venus, everything land in my lap. Hey, TV dinner. I'll be ready in 10 minutes. So we're learning. A lot of people are learning. A lot of people are blogging. A lot of people are broadcasting. Michael Moore, my big hero in life, is making film after film after film with more balls than they have at Titleist. He's got the balls to speak the truth. We talked a lot on his show. It was really pleasant in the last couple of weeks about what each person is doing, each one of you. It's a wonderful thing to see. But that's what the chart says. Now, I wrote an article years ago, and I may resurrect it soon, called Pluto Will Help You If You Let It. And I may resurrect that one, which means I'm trying. I don't know how to do it, but I'm trying. Pluto knows that. And I hate to put a personality on these guys, but they got one. And if you're trying to stand up, even wobbly, Pluto will come and bring you crutches. It will bring you people. It'll bring you books. It'll bring you money. It'll bring you inspiration. It will. And if you don't, it'll do the opposite. It'll cut you down. Pluto is very patient, and Pluto's seen a lot easier now that we got the eyes of Eris, because Eris is much more bombastic. And even to Eris, the principles of the planets are, if you try to allow that energy, that archetypal energy through you, it will benefit you as it comes through. It will do that. So, thank everybody for putting up for this for 67 minutes. I want to open the phone calls up to you. We'll stick with YouTubers. If you would like to ask any questions about the United States chart, that's what the topic is about. I did want to say a couple things before I forget. Last week, I showed you the chart of Bob Dylan, and I made a mistake, and I showed you 4 planets in Taurus. Then I said they were in the 6th house. I was wrong. They're in the 5th house, and the 5th house is the house of creativity, singing. So that was good. And I also made a mistake. I wanted to let John know. John's new with us. I wanted John to understand something because I was talking last week about Geminis, John. I'm asking you to unmute on your screen here. I wanted you to understand the real core to a Gemini is, what's it called? Is the word epistemology? Epistemology. They want to understand how the brain works. That's why they do what they do. They're on a lifelong study. How does the brain work? Aquarius is, how is the mental plane constructed for all of us? Gemini is back at the singular level. But that's what drives Geminis. And I read all your stats, which are so impressive, John, and all the different things you've tried. And they're all really, the essence to them is finding out how does the brain work? How does the mind work? Fascinated with how the mind works. That makes sense to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if anybody's got any questions about the USA's chart, I love Susan. Susan's in the middle of a restaurant. They don't have masks on. Oh my God. I got one for you. You think you can one-up me? Boy, listen to this. You think you're gonna one-up me? Well, where's Nostradamus when you need him? Well, there he is. See? So there. Take that. Take that. Don't break the test tube. Come on now.
Rick?
Yes, Eric, go ahead, dear.
I was just watching something the other day that reminded me that it's this program about voting rights for women and this suffrage movement and everything. And I think they fought for over 60 years, but it's only been 60 years since women had a right to have their own credit card in their own name, to vote, so many things. So the women's rights is having its Saturn return right now while all this is happening.
That's the
Also,
1965 Uranus and Pluto conjunction 35, 55 years ago.
and I was thinking also that with everything we've been going through, if you look at, just the world in general, maybe this is kind of a side effect of just people getting more freedom and more power, but because it's just been so out of control, it can go all over the place and be controlled by various people. So on one hand, we've all gotten a lot more autonomy or freedom, but on the other hand, people have figured out ways of stealing it from us simultaneously.
That's the Mars square Neptune.
Kind of, bring it back to where the most of the people want it, because we've been too busy doing other things.
Who's been at the steering wheel?
Stealing everything from the back room.
Who's been at the helm? Who's been at the helm?
What are you talking about?
The country. Take a look at the country in the last 30 years and ask yourself, what has the Congress done for us in 30 years? I mean, ask yourself and think, Linda Jordan, Linda Platt, you have to unmute yourself. Thank you, Erica. What has the Congress done for us in 30 years?
Well, I mean, you could take it back 40.
We can go back 50, but we all know it's Reagan since 1980.
I mean,
what has it done for us? We've gotten Obamacare.
And even that was a compromise. It was a compromise.
Of course, it's still a fight to this day.
I mean, so
it's demonic.
That was a positive thing.
Well, what? All this money we're paying all these 600 senators and congressmen, what are they doing?
I'm having a hard time thinking of anything.
Mark, come on, Mark. You're a real honest kind of guy. What have they done for us, Mark? Zero. That's a hell of a report. How would you like to take that report card to Mr. Pluto? Because Pluto is saying to you, what have you done since 1930? What have you done since I was discovered? 70 years. Oh, we bullshit everybody. We bullshit the South Americans. We bullshit the Africans. Squeezed them for what we could. These are true statements. Okay, well, we can go on forever with the Indians and all. But the point is, what can we do now? That's why I'm going to have a woman on here very soon. Her name is Dina Patrick. She lives in North Carolina. She's one of the most incredible people I've ever met. She's not an astrologer. She is a doer. She starts all these organizations. She does things which end up getting exposed on Fox Network because she does things that kind of help one another. She starts institutions where you got 2 mattresses, we put a billboard together, now somebody else gets one because you have 2. And she puts people together and she creates all these networks. And she's all over the country creating like Wish-A-Do. That's her organization's called Wish-A-Do. And she does all this work with, what's that, John?
No, I was going to comment when Mark says zero. I think you said Congress. Congress has a bipolar disorder.
Well, whatever. I mean, besides they do get the checks out, to the retirees and stuff. But I mean, who's leading? Who's leading what?
It's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, what's going down the drain unless somebody turns it around. We just had an excellent president They wouldn't let him do anything for 8 years. I think Biden's crazy. Would you want to run right now? Whew. I sure wish he were 60 instead of near 80. But anyhow, what can we do with this? You see, the power is there. The planets keep working through you. And you saw where we conned ourselves. Because what happened is the Europeans ran over here and squatted and took all the good stuff and tried to just keep squeezing the lemon juice out of everything. And now it's all depleted. We got African Americans, we got Irish Americans, we got all this. We don't have any European Americans, which is what most of us are. So we have to raise our consciousness. A lot of great things happening there. People are coming up with just wonderful ways to use the mind now, wonderful ways to help heal each other. And Dina Patrick has all these wonderful groups that she's built. No Othering is another group she's formed. She's formed these groups around the country on the internet. And I'm going to have her come and speak to us about how she's a Virgo, how you can get off your ass and do things. And she has done tons. And she was nailed one day. Who was that? Glenn Paul? What was the guy's name? Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck embarrassed her one day on his show about 15 years ago. And it singled her out for her We Should Do. What We Should Do was an organization she created where if you had two of something, you share with somebody else. That's all it was. And they wanted an example of a communist, Marxist type of thing that she was trying to do. And all she was trying to say was, let's help each other. And they put her sign up on the board with all these other things. And he went on his little blackboard tirade talking about how evil it was, etc. And since then, she started about 10 other organizations by herself. By herself. So she'll be very encouraging to have on here because she'll show you what you can do. And she's no coward. She's been attacked, and wonderful woman, very pleasant. Dina Patrick, she will be on here in the next couple of months. Okay, everybody, great show from Susan. I'll see you later, Susan. You better close down that cartoon behind you. Reverend Kim, talk to us. You're there you are. I'm trying to find out why I have to ask to unmute somebody, but I can't get an answer because Zoom is just too busy right now. What do you think about what you're hearing?
I think love is the answer. I mean, I think we have to be responsible. We got to be respectful, and we've got to get down to the nitty gritty of accepting our responsibility for what we do or what we've done or what we're going to do.
I didn't ask for a Virgo answer.
That's
exactly what I got. Doggone it.
I know, I can't get off of that.
Tell us what that sign means to you.
This sign means that
Reverend is very, very heavily involved with the Course in Miracles. Go ahead.
Yeah, that our magic has no power. And it's not that we're not going to do what we're going to do. We are. But the bottom line is there's only one power in this place where we're at. And the mind the body suffering can pull a mask over that the mind wants to hide behind in that suffering. And I just see that it's really a simple thing. Kind of treat each other like you want to be treated, and that includes countries and everything.
That sounds like Jesus' first lesson.
Yeah.
Why can't we get past the first one?
Really, yeah. Yep.
Sound like Rodney King?
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of the Course. The Course is so extremely complex, but it's also extremely simple.
Yes.
And as our good friend Nick Arandes has been a guest here and taught us, you don't have to do anything. We had a reading yesterday, Linda and I, and it's about this illusion that we got to get up and do something. Got to go do something. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything, nothing. Just stand back and just be awestruck and watch as he or she does it. Because we can't do anything. If you think you could do something, raise your hand and explain to me how you did it. Because I don't believe it. We can't do anything. How did, okay, you were being a good person. What did you do? You don't do anything. It happens. It just happens. It happens or it doesn't happen. There is no doer. There are not 9 doers here doing.
But you have to give yourself permission sometimes, because a lot of times people say, "Oh, I'd like to do this," or
Erica, if
I'll
you
do that, but
want to
that
believe,
person
if you want to believe in that circuitry, that's up to you.
well, I'm saying that we can consciously help it along with our intention.
What I'm saying is there is no I. There is nobody separate. There is no you or me. There's just one big heart, one big brain.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back and just sit around and drink beer then. Would that be good?
No, you won't. You know why you won't do it? You know why you won't do it?
Because I don't like drinking beer.
Because it's not in your script. See, we assume that if we let ourselves go, we're going to be bums. But we're not. Our hearts are rich and full. Our hearts are going to move forward and do good things because it's our nature. Power versus Force, the first book written by David Hawkins. Power is working with God's power coming through you. Force is believing, I do this because I push harder than you do. And it's a myth. You can't do anything. Do you ever see how unhappy Mr. Trump looks? Unhappy he looks. And all the towers he's pushed over? Doesn't work. How about the most glorious? I'll end it here. I'll end it on this saying here. What are the nicest people you'll ever be around? The people you love the most, the people you envy the most, the people who are the richest, the people who have the peace and quiet. What do they all have in common? What do they have in common? They're not hung up on what Rick can do. They don't. They allow, I mean, I did this show tonight, but I have no idea what I did. Dylan, how did you write Like a Rolling Stone? How did you write Like a Rolling Stone? I have no idea. It just came to me. Tesla, don't be deluded. You are just a receiver. You can do nothing. You kid yourself into doing. All you can do is receive and watch it. And as you watch it, it becomes great. Because quantum physics shows that things change when we look at it. We are in the quantum age, and I heartily want to invite Linda to come speak to us about the new healing machine. She and I will both be getting our machines probably pretty soon. And I want to invite her to come and talk to you about them. And it's selling like crazy worldwide. And I want her to try to explain better than I can how the thing works. Anyhow, tonight was a good show. I think you got to understand why the chart is the way it is. And you gotta soberly understand that this could all be crushed. There's a very, very strong possibility that the American system could just be crushed because the patient's just too sick. It could rebound. Pluto's all about rebounding. It could happen. It's how much is left in the heart of the collective. It's really a tough one, but great things to be focusing together. Thank you. Thank you, YouTubers, for being with us. Thank you, Elkie up in the sky. up in the clouds. That's the way to do it. I can see everybody's going to have their own background from now on. Love you all. Talk to you next week. We'll find out what's going on then. Be at peace. Keep your mask on. Don't take it off. We're going to wear a mask.